Chumrah.
I'm gonna I'm recording you guys. So watch your mouth.
It's a it's a chumrah, but there is no halacha. You can't sit down in a chair next to a woman. But some guys don't want to sit next to a woman, so they should stand.
I just stand.
No, I
That's
mean,
an interesting view of it. But when you say the Orthodox should be more tolerant, if they say we want to create a town and live separately, we don't want to bother anyone, maybe we should argue that the regular guys like us should be more tolerant. Is that also an equal argument?
if it's a religious town and it's like 80-90% religious and they control the local city council, yeah, I suppose they can make those kind of laws, but they have to get the bus company to agree, and
Or make their own
bus
bus
company doesn't agree, they may have to get their own bus company. It's there has to be some give and take. I think like outlawing non-kosher restaurants. I don't know if you can do that. It'd be very nice. I mean, again, if you have your own little town and you have control of the city council, maybe you can outlaw them, or make it really difficult for somebody who's won't comply. But in a big city like Jerusalem or Tel Aviv, I don't think you can do it.
Right, right.
It's just not. It's not practical, and as it is, there's already so much resentment about the fact that like a lot of religious guys don't go in the army, and people religious with big families getting all sorts of government aid, which other people who work all day long have to pay for. It's I understand the religious. It's interesting. I found that the religious and the non-religious both live in a little bubble world of their own. The religious live in this bubble world where we're supporting Torah and they're supporting the nation Torah study. It's the obligation of the rest of the country to support us. And the non-religious live in their own little bubble, like, oh, religious is ridiculous, and we should just, these guys should just buzz off and leave us alone, do what we want. It's and they all have their own narrow view of reality of life, so they both have their bubble world, it's I remember the Rebbe once, somebody once asked the Rebbe about some controversy was going on in the Israeli Knesset or the country, and he said you can't make big changes suddenly. If you want to get along with people, you have to make very small compromise, little by little. That's all.
I thought you brought up a lot of good points. And that's an interesting observation by the Rebbe.
Yeah. The Rebbe was very practical. He wasn't one of these extremists, just said, just do it your way. Sometimes he did. I mean, when it came to the land of Israel, he was very adamant that we shouldn't relinquish any land for peace, for so-called peace. That we have to protect every piece of land we acquire. And if we have a war, we get some land, we keep the land. That's, he's very adamant.
What happens is what we have now where, yes, we own Gaza right now, but what do you want to do with all those people? I mean, Netanyahu is trying to push them into Egypt, but is that practical? What are we going to do with the land? Are we going to be guardians of this land forever?
The Egyptians don't want them. I see no other alternative, just to keep a permanent military presence there.
So
be good for the
really
Palestinians.
Is that to our advantage?
Well, the alternative is to have a terror state on your border and start all over again.
I mean, I personally think, but it's of course none of my business because I'm an American, but I think they should push them out and send them to Africa.
Yeah, well, Egypt is Africa, so.
Right. Where's Howard?
Howard,
I'm here.
It's funny how, people don't really care about these things. I mean, Kuwait, deported 500,000 Palestinians because they sided with Saddam Hussein after the first Gulf War. Nobody said anything about that. Jordan, I think it's estimated they killed several 100,000 Palestinians after they were creating a hassle in the 1970s. They just kicked them out. They all moved to Lebanon, destroyed the country. So, but you kill one Palestinian, and all of a sudden, all the world's breathing down your neck.
The world's obsessed with the Jews.
They
Howard,
are. The
good to
Jews,
see you.
as somebody said, the Jews are news.
The Jews are news. That's cute. That's true. My Chabad rabbi in town puts it very bluntly. He says, the world is turned against us. What's new?
True.
One rabbi I remember in Chicago used to say whenever one of these events or people are starting up, or hating Israel, he always say, it's Yad Hashem. All the hatred, all the uprisings against it, it's all Yad Hashem. It's all coming from God. It's if you think it's coming from someplace else, you're up, it's like apocorsis, it's koifery. It's everything is God's hand. So just, if this thing's happened to us, we just have to ask Hashem. So like, what's it about? What are we supposed to do with it?
Yeah, I mean, why does Torah open with the lines that the world will never accept our legitimacy in the land of Israel? It's literally the opening lines of Sefer Torah.
Oh, you mean in the Chumash?
The Chumash, yeah, that we have to, that
Yeah, Rashi's commentary, yeah, that Bereshit, he says if the nations say you stole the land, just say God made the whole world. He first gave it to the 7 nations, and then he gave it to us, and he can take it away from anybody he likes, give it to anybody he likes.
right, and we're still saying that today. We have so
He said
many. Yeah, we have so many people going to Israel. Almost everyone I know has gone there to do one thing or another.
Yeah.
Yeah, that since the October 7th, another almost 3,000 new immigrants. And so these people aren't scared. I think they're more
Right.
scared to stay where they come from, places like France and other places.
Well, when you look at the anti-Semitism in France, I'm not surprised. When my son actually lived down at just a little bit north of Gaza, and almost every young person he knew was from France. They had left France and come down there.
Yeah, it's one of the mythologies on the left is that anti-Semitism only comes from people on the right, right-wingers, neo-Nazis. That's just a complete baloney lie. They did a poll of Jews in Europe who had experienced anti-Semitic incidents, and 81% said it was either Muslims or people on the left. Only 19% were from right-wingers or skinheads.
In the United States, all the anti-Semitism on campus is coming from the left.
Of course, yeah, and Muslims, leftists and Muslim, the unholy alliance.
Yeah.
But it's amazing. I've talked to family members; they can't swallow it. It's just it's very uncomfortable for them.
Where's your family live?
Oh, all over the place. I have a sister who's in Long Island. Another sister lives in Burgundy, France. Brother lives in Holland.
Wow.
And my brother lives in near Boston.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they're sort of scattered around.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah.
How are the world?
Howard, you want to tell us a little bit about the speech you heard, the Nazi that converted to Orthodox Judaism?
Yes.
I read something about a guy who's actually Jewish, but fell in with skinhead, neo-Nazis, and then came out of it. And,
There was a movie about it, right?
no, just saw a YouTube short, thing about him.
That could be the same person. His name was Frank Meink, Meink.
Yeah, that's the guy. I thought it was very interesting. He says he spends an hour and a half meditating every day and talking to God. But that's great. I'm lucky if I can get 10 or 15 minutes doing that. I'm just too restless. But
Howard, is he an Orthodox Jew now?
Yes.
So what happened?
I guess he grew up being an abused child and got involved with a whole bunch of low-life individuals, and I think he was abused by his parents. And he was looking for companionship. So,
Yeah, I think he said that the gang was like a family for him, you know.
right. So, I mean, to me, one of the big takeaway messages is that everybody needs to have relationships, and his with his family were terrible. So he found other people, and unfortunately, they were a bad crowd, but they accepted him, and he was happy to be able to be in with the in crowd, even if the in crowd was the out crowd. And so he got involved in a whole bunch of bad activities, beating up people. I don't know if it went so far as to murder people, but I wouldn't be surprised.
I think he said he spent some time in prison, and
I'm sorry.
I believe he had some time in prison.
I think you're right. And I don't remember all the details, but eventually he wound up trying to get his life straightened out a little bit, and he wound up getting a job working in a warehouse. And he was loading trucks of furniture and other packages. And the owner of the company was so impressed with him that he kept praising him and telling him that he was a good person. And, it was the first time in his life that he'd ever been given positive feedback. And it was a very healthy, helpful thing for him. And eventually he broke away from the bad actors that he'd been hanging out with. And I think he got hooked up with some people who, they said, we think you're Jewish. And he said, no, I'm not Jewish. And it turns out that he realized that he was, and eventually he got hooked up with some Chabad rabbis and got into studying with them and turned his life around.
How he didn't know he was Jewish first?
I think not.
Hmm.
But
Yeah, they looked into it. It turned out his mother was Jewish.
So his mother was so estranged from him that she never even let him know he was a Jew?
Yeah,
yeah,
I can't remember
I
the
think
details.
I don't think it was ever discussed.
Yeah,
So he was a really bad actor, but when he came in contact with some positive reinforcement, he learned to turn his life around. And I guess for me, one of the messages that I thought was presented in his talk was that everybody needs to have a group that they can relate to, and even if they're bad actors, if they're accepted, they're willing to put up with that because they don't know any better. But eventually he came across some good influences, and it helped turn his life around.
I guess if he didn't come across these people, he probably wouldn't turn around.
That's probably true. Unless he I think he got himself into plenty of trouble. And
I was thinking of this, what you said, because like there's a day, like Bob thing you mentioned from Tanya, we're doing Tanya every morning for a few minutes. And one thing I was going to actually record tomorrow we were going through Benoni and Tzaddik and Russia and all that. And our thinking is, how does a person become, how does a person repent? Let's say something, a complete Russia, complete bad person that essentially has nothing good left in it. Tanya says, he still has maintain some kernel of goodness. But how does a person make repentance? And I came to conclusion person only by the outside influence. In other words, he has to come across, which is what makes us all responsible to be able to provide such assistance to people who are even when as far as Judaism or from being good people anymore. That help, because it's all, you cannot lift yourself by your hair. At some point, you have to have external influence, or because why would this person, two bad guys, one guy repents and becomes good, and another guy doesn't, continues being a bank robber? So what makes a person to ultimately do it? I think external influence. Nothing just clicks on autopilot internally, I think.
Howard, it sounds like he's a little bit of an unusual case because he was so lonely that he was really looking for a brotherhood, and he found it in Chabad. Is that what you got from that?
No, first he found it was his gang, right?
Well, at first it was his gang and the whole criminal element. And I think he's had a lot of incidents where he got in trouble with the law. But eventually he got some positive feedback somewhere and he broke free from the bad influences. And I guess he saw what happened to some of the other people who were bad actors too, and what happened to them. And he really didn't want that to happen to him.
It sounds, Howard, like there's a lot of chance in his life. Like, for instance, he wasn't looking for religion, he was looking for friendship. And for instance, say he fell in with a group of Wall Street Jews from Short Hills, New Jersey, he would be a Wall Street Jew in Short Hills, but he happened to fall into Chabad, so he ended up by chance as an Orthodox Jew. That's what it sounds like.
Well, to a certain extent, isn't that true of all of us?
Yeah.
How did we wind up where we are?
That's right. Last time we talked about it, I agree with you, Howard. The only exception to that was Adam and Eve. They're the only ones that didn't have influences by the society. They had a predetermined. That's the only couple that didn't have the full willpower, the freedom of choice. We all have freedom of choice, and then if we don't make decisions right, or we make wrong decisions,
They also have freedom.
But
Have freedom of choice.
They were
You
influenced
can't say
by
they
the
didn't have freedom
snake.
of choice. If they didn't have freedom of choice, they weren't human beings.
No, they didn't have. They had a freedom of choice, but they didn't have a full freedom of choice because the reasons they did it. What prompted Eve to take an apple? You say the snake did it, but why did she listen to the snake? She didn't know what the evil was until she tried the fruit, the apple. Before taking an apple, she didn't know what evil is. She didn't know she was doing something wrong because she didn't know what wrong is. So it means that God had to make her do that purposely. God was the only society that Eve and Adam knew. We all know. I can say I did something wrong because I live in a neighborhood, the neighbors were bad, or vice versa. Adam and Eve didn't live in a bad neighborhood or good neighborhood. The only neighborhood they had, the only societal influence was God himself, nobody else. That means the freedom of choice was, they're the only couple, the freedom of choice was taken away, at least probably completely in the beginning. Because if they have freedom of choice, in order for to have freedom of choice, you need to know what's good or bad, and then you choose. And if you don't know what bad is, you don't have freedom of choice. They didn't know.
But they were told by Hashem, don't eat from this tree.
And why did they do it?
Yeah, why did they do it?
Because God
Well,
made it.
It seemed like a good idea at the time.
Good idea. They did it because God made them do it. Nobody else. No
Why
neighbor.
did we leave Gaza unguarded? Because it seemed like a good idea at the time.
Well, I mean, Tanya says there's a constant struggle between emotions and seichel and your brain, but it also says your brain is stronger and you should be able to make the right choice. And I think Tanya doesn't leave much excuse for making the wrong choices in life.
That's
That's the
for
way
all, that's for all of us except for Adam and Eve.
Okay, so forget Adam and Eve, they're long gone. But for us today, there's no excuse for wrong choices. That's I don't know if Tanya says that about the other nations of the world, but I mean
It
the people.
says we have to fight the Yetzer Hara every day, and we can't do it without Hashem's help.
That's only for Benoni. For a full tzaddik, they don't have to fight it. They completely transfer the Yetzer Hara into Yetzer Tov.
So Howard, I think from what we're saying here, this guy deserves a lot of credit. He made these choices. It wasn't just for brotherhood, but I mean, he consciously decided to be an Orthodox Jew. I think he's a good example for a lot of Jews.
Good example. Where does he live right now? Where is it? In Atlanta?
No, I don't think he lives in Atlanta. I didn't have a chance to look up his biography or if there's anything on the internet, but I can do that.
But you heard him in Chabad, Atlanta, right?
Yes, he was at the Chabad that I go to.
Is he
Chabad in
married,
North-
kids? What is his social life? What does he do? No.
I think, if I recall, he does outreach to troubled youth.
Yes,
He's
But-
very good at he connects with them very well because he knows the whole,
But does he have a profession? What does he do for a living?
that's what he does for a living, works with some sort of outreach.
Like a counselor, huh?
yeah, and he
Social
goes
work,
around,
yeah.
and he goes around giving presentations,
Is he married?
for which he's compensated.
I don't think so.
Single guy.
Howard, does
He
he
doesn't
give a
say anything about
lesson?
whether he's married or not.
Does
What?
he give a lesson? Does he say why he ended up the way he did and coming back to Judaism? What power drove him to Chabad?
His name, what's his name again? What's his name?
Frank, Meeink is the name.
Howard, why did he walk into Chabad the first time? What was he
There it
doing?
is.
I can't give you the answer to that.
I mean,
I
did he
know
know?
eventually somehow he came across some rally, when he discovered that he was Jewish, he began affiliating with Jewish people, and I guess some of them are rabbis, some of them may not have been Chabad, but eventually they guided him in the direction of accepting Hashem. But I can't give you the details. Are you looking it up on your phone?
Yeah.
What did his former buddy say about it? Nazis. Did he give him time?
Well, I would suspect that they probably weren't too happy about it, but I think he tried to stay far away from them.
I had a college friend who also didn't know that he was Jewish until his mother on her deathbed told him that he was Jewish.
It says after his prison sentence, he went back to where he spent his childhood in South Philadelphia. And local hockey team, Philadelphia Flyers, he worked with them to create a group called Harmony Through Hockey, which gives young kids a chance to stay out of the way of violence, have fun while participating. And he visits high schools and gives lecture on his life.
Wow, good
They
for
said
him.
Good for him.
he almost killed somebody and he kidnapped somebody else and he used a gun in the kidnapping and ended up in prison for 3 years
Did you find anything, Bob?
in Springfield,
No, I'm
Illinois.
not looking.
Oh,
Ruben was looking.
That's what Ruben just was reading us.
So Ruben, he
But
was
he
in
had-
jail for 3 years, you say?
Yeah. Yeah, and then but he I guess he got some positive feedback from the guy he was working for, and then ran into a rabbi who got him in touch with his Jewish roots.
Well, it's an amazing story, guys. That's a good story.
It's here if you're interested in it. Here's the I'll
I was wondering if such things could be accomplished with, the American right and the American Nazi Party, but I think that without a Jewish basis, that there would be no way of making any sort of a transformation in the American right. Those who aren't Jewish, they are, because I think they're just pure evil.
Mm,
I've had many patients, Lev, who had just discovered their Jewish roots because I worked in a Hispanic area, and many of them were descendants of the so-called Marranos.
uh-huh.
And they either discovered they were Jewish or suspected that they were Jewish. But it was very hard for them because they didn't know how to make the jump and become really Jewish again. It was just too great a leap for many of them.
Yeah, it's such a shock. So only so much you can do.
Well, I looked him up on the internet, and there are many references to him. So if you want more information on him, I think it'll be easy to find. Some of the things that it said about him is he's a recovering skinhead, and I'm sure you wouldn't have any problem finding information.
So if he was a skinhead, he was a very serious Nazi.
Yeah.
Yes.
The real thing.
Yeah.
Here's the link to the YouTube
I see.
about his life.
Okay, good.
The first reference says a recovering skinhead on leaving hatred behind.
It's almost like a son of Hamas, another guy, right? He left the
Yeah.
Hamas and became anti-Hamas, became the freedom talker.
But do you
Well,
think,
he's-
Lev, you can trust someone like that?
I don't
That's an
know.
interesting question.
Good question. Yeah.
I mean, you see
It's,
this all the time, Arabs who decide they don't want to kill Jews, and you know what? I don't trust them. Sorry, but that's the way I feel.
Yeah. Hard to answer that. It's a good question, Bob.
See, because I said that, we're going to be kicked off of YouTube again.
I don't know. Should we post this video or not?
I don't know. There's a lot going on in Congress now about censorship in Google and YouTube, and you know what? We should go and testify before Congress how our little group is thrown off.
Yeah. Did you guys see my video I recorded today from election in Israel? You probably
Yeah, I saw part of it. I listened to your voicemail. I figured the video was similar to the voicemail.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. A lot of fun. I'll say I think we may have a seat. My party might be able to get into the city council. Maybe we'll see.
But are you running for mayor?
No, for congressman, city councilman.
Yeah, I went in to vote today and
Ruben voted for me.
it had two envelopes, one for council people and with the party. They only vote for the party. And then one for mayor. And the mayor, and the mayor slot, they only had one name.
Well, mayor
So there
answered
wasn't
the
really
mayor,
much choice.
the president mayor answered the post. But what I did, they have two envelopes, Bob. And
Yeah,
then
you
first,
could write in they had some blank papers, you could write your own name in or anybody you like.
I put my business card in the second envelope for mayor.
Our mayor Rubik Danilovich,
He's a
he
good
won the
mayor.
last election with 90 or 95% of the vote. He's very popular.
On the post.
Lev,
Unopposed,
why are you
yeah.
running? Why are you running? What do you want to do in town?
Cleaned it up.
Clean up the dog poop.
Let's talk about guys. We have 15 seconds left.
Seriously, he wants to try to clean up the streets.
Let's next Tuesday, 8 o'clock. Well, let's talk about it next Tuesday. We only have 5 seconds, guys. Have a good
All right.
love you
Okay.
all. Shabbat shalom.